Greetings, this is Ty Brown with Athletic Director U. I'm here on campus at TCU and I'm joined by Mike Sinquefield. Mike is currently the Deputy Athletic Director for Internal Affairs here with TCU Athletics. Greetings, Mike. Thanks for allowing me to be here with you.
Thanks, Ty. Glad to be with you. It's my pleasure.
Now, Mike, you've been in college athletics for 33 years, right?
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
It is, which is some time. I mean, that includes your time as a student athletic trainer. That includes time working in the equipment room, time as a director of football operations, and of course now you are deputy athletics director here. And internal affairs, right? From my perspective, it seems like internal affairs, when you take away all the layers, involves leading and managing people to keep the department competitive without focusing on external resources, but then also to make sure student athletes have a great experience while they're here. Can you give us a little insight on internal affairs from your perspective, because you've been kind of in it from the on the field sport operations, and now you're in
right. Well, I still think a lot of it's the same and relative. I mean, I got started in the business. I cut my teeth in a support role, which was internal as an equipment guy and a student athletic trainer, and moved up. So my goals and roles have always been just to support those around me. And so as you get to administration and to call it internal affairs, now I'm just supporting a bigger group of people at different levels. So now I'm not only supporting coaches and student athletes, but now I'm more involved with trying to provide that same type of support to all of our other constituents and our teammates and our fellow employees to help them provide the best services in their units to their people, whether that be coaches, student athletes, knowing that that's still the end goal of everything, is provide those services to coaches and student athletes. That's why we're here.
Right. You find yourself now, as you mentioned, support role, equipment manager, to director of football operations, everything. Obviously, there was leadership involved, but you were supporting the head football coach, supporting the football program. Now, as a deputy athletics director, like you mentioned, you're supporting the department, supporting the student athletes, supporting the AD, but now you find yourself in an expanded leadership role, right? You also have sport oversight, football, and now basketball. And there are probably a ton of people in this department that look to you for leadership. Can you talk to me about your style of leadership and how, from being in that support role, how you look at things now, right? You're the number 2 person here in the department.
Right. Well, a lot of it's still the same, to be honest with you. Again, it's just that the people are a little bit different. Mm-hmm. I still view myself as that support person. I am still here to try to provide the best service we can to our top 2 assets. One of which is our student athletes, and the other one's our coaches that, put them on the playing field and bring them into our campus. So I still look at that as support. Yes, if you look at a flow chart and your sport oversight, so technically you fall above these people, but that I never view it that way. I still fall below them, and I say below them because I'm going to stand beneath them, and I'm going to stand below them and support them. And what that means is that daily activities? Is it going to battle for them, going to fight battles for them to make things better for their program and help, get with the other side of the building and determine resources and how we provide to our coaches and our student athletes to give them the best possible experience, and also put them on a playing field as best we can to compete for championships, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do.
All right. You've made a number of transitions, right?
Yes.
Throughout your career, the most recent significant transition is when you went from director of football ops to here where you are in administration. Tell me about some of the challenges or the assumptions you came into when, at the time, athletic director Chris Del Conte moved you up to be in administration from your football operations role.
Well, I think first and foremost, I think it was, and it's happened to me once before when I moved from the equipment room to the football office, the ops guy, is that there was so much you thought you knew that you didn't. So you operated in this your own silo in the equipment room. Same thing in football. And then there was another step. So the first part was when you move into it, you get really a bigger, broader look at it. Your problems are not just, immune to, you're just not focusing just on one sport. Now you're really concentrating and balancing your needs, wants, desires, problems, issues across the entire department, and how one decision for football, that when you're in the football office, you're pushing really hard to try to do something. And in reality is when you get to the other side of administration, you realize that, okay, if that in fact did or did not happen, what's the trickle-down effect to the rest of the department? So that was a big part of it, is learning more and more of what maybe perhaps you did know, but the overall grand scope of how the athletic department runs, is funded, represents the institution, just on a much bigger scale than it would before. So that was one. And the other part was going from where I had my colleagues, if you will, they were my superiors, and now without me coming in new, we're all familiar with one another. Now I become more of a colleague than so much a subordinate, if you will. Not that we ever treated that way. We always had great relationships with people here. It was probably more so in my mind as I stepped into the room on a senior staff level, and that, okay, now I'm the new guy in the room, and how am I perceived? Because I've been here a long time and have been very fortunate to have the right things happen for me and advance my career without having to relocate. So probably a lot of it was my own internal challenges, knowing, okay, now these people that I still look up to as friends and my superiors, now we're on the same level. So it was just my own personal trying to adjust to that. And in time, certainly help with that. And now that we've gone through another athletic director transition, feel even more comfortable with that.
Yeah. Of course, what I know about you, humble guy, you mentioned in different terms, but servant leadership.
Right.
I mean, now people are looking to you, though. Now when you walk in the room, let's say, for instance, Jeremiah, current athletics director, is out. Now you're making these decisions on the direction of the department, right? When you went from the role to colleague now, from person you might have been looking up to or reporting to, how was their perception of you? I imagine the personality helped it make it easy for them, but did they receive you any different when you came into the role?
I don't think so. Like I said, as I referenced, most of those challenges I felt like were, in that particular scenario, were with myself. It was my own peace of mind and my own comfort level to do that. I never had any issues. The people that were with us at the time, and most of which are still with us, I've got great relationships with. Some I've been with a long time. I mean, a colleague of mine was in the training room at the same time I was in the equipment room, so we've been together a long time. And it's ebbed and flowed, and you have those. But I've never felt awkward about it, and part of it may be my own personality. Yeah. I am a backseat guy. I'm here to support and serve. Yeah. I'm not. This isn't my cup of tea to be in front of these things, but ultimately, I did have a really good relationship with all the people around us, and I'd like to think of myself as a people person and very accommodating. And so I really didn't face any troubles with that.
Overseeing basketball, right? That's a new thing on your plate.
Yes, sir.
And I imagine relationship with the coach is a relationship with the coach, obviously different personality than Gary Patterson. But talk to me about the education process in terms of sport oversight, in terms of bringing on another major sport here, revenue sport here on campus, and how you look at that in terms of the grand scheme of what you do.
Well, it's just another sport. Granted, it's a big sport. It's an important pillar to the institution and our athletics department. But it was a situation where I had a good relationship with Jamie. There was a need. Jeremiah asked, and again, I don't perceive sport oversight as me dictating or trying to be involved in the day-to-day activities. I want to be aware of it. The great thing about our two programs that oversee, they've got great operations people, and so a lot of that stuff has to funnel through those people anyway on a day-to-day. When you're in the season, I mean, I'm not involved in getting into the details. I don't want to be there. I want to check in with the coach. I want him to know that I'm there. If he needs me, I will answer every phone call. I don't care what time of day or night it is. I'll be anywhere he wants. If he calls me, you want to chat, I'm stopping what I'm doing, I'm running to his office. And that goes for both, Coach Patterson and Coach Dixon. That's the way I want to serve both of them. Is I look at it, number one, is just being available. Because sometimes they just want to come in and talk and vent, or express an idea or express a frustration, if it may be, and then look for their own confirmation that, hey, we're doing things right for the institution, and whatever I can do to help with that, that's what I'm for. So I didn't see it as a monumental task. It's just another group of people I can try to get closer to and try to provide that same support to their programs. Fortunately for us, it happens to be two of our pillar programs.
You mentioned culture. As you guys, from what I've seen, TCU athletics has expanded a lot over the last few years in terms of onboarding, right? In terms of the culture within the department. I imagine you have a hand in that in terms of making sure people understand who you are here, Horned Frogs, who you are, how we operate, servant leadership. Sure. Talk about that process.
Well, I think a lot of that sometimes too comes before onboarding, if you will. We've established a great culture here of people in our department. You notice that we don't have a large amount of turnover. When you aside from the coaches' ebbs and flows that you run across, our staff, we haven't had a lot of turnover. And that's one, it goes from the chancellor down, create an incredible culture at TCU and an incredible place to work Fort Worth's an incredible place to live. The brand that it's become, a Power 5 institution, the success we've had in all of our sport programs, that makes it an enjoyable place to work and serve. And so we don't see a lot of it, and that in itself has created this culture where people want to be here. Right. And it's kind of ingrained now in most of them. Now occasionally it's very clear that when we have staff turnover and we bring someone in, you don't really make it part of an onboarding that, hey, here's the culture. You have learned that the people that are involved in the hiring process, and me in some roles sometimes, and sometimes not at all other than finalizing things, is they figured that out and realized that that's part of the process in making their own decisions as who to bring to campus and present as the next employee. Is it foolproof? Is it 100%? No. But what I found over the years, we find out if you bring someone in that's not a great fit and doesn't completely buy in, they also figured out pretty quickly and realized it's time to go. And I think that's a great reflection of our entire staff, our entire leadership, the entire campus, and that we still, even in that, we don't have a lot of turnover. People truly want to be at TCU and want to see our programs be successful.
Mm-hmm. That says a lot about the leadership, you being one of them in terms of that kind of culture. I'll ask you a couple more questions here. Sure. One of the things I've seen, of course, we know each other from back in my Football Coaches Association years, but a coach will start off and he gets into the game because he wants to influence young men. We're talking about football here. And so he's a position coach or graduate assistant, position coach. He's working with his unit. Then he has a defense or an offense. Then he becomes a head coach. And the struggle of a head coach is they don't get to be as hands-on or get to work with the student athletes as much as they love to when they got into the game and throughout their progression of their career. I wonder how that affects you now. I mean, in the equipment room, you're right there dealing with kids. Of course, I was the kind of guy to come ask for some more socks and can I have another hat and the kind of thing, right? And then you go to football operations and you're making sure people get to where they need to be, how they need to be there, making sure the coach is good, student athletes, you get everybody, liaison to everybody actually as a DFO. Now you're in internal affairs, you're in the department, you're, for lack of a better word, in the ivory tower over here, trying to make sure everything's running good. The interaction with student athletes, I imagine, is something that has lessened, decreased over time. Is that how do you reconcile that? I mean,
well, I don't know that you can. You try as you might. As I've said previous and many times, as you and I have talked over the years, that's the one thing that I kind of miss when I was in the equipment room. The student athletes, particularly, let's talk football specifically, the student athletes that I knew in the locker room, I have a different relationship with them now, 20 years later, than those that only knew me as the director of operations. And now it's even a different one where sometimes a lot of our student athletes I may only see if there's a problem. Yeah. It's just, the days are full, the tasks are full, obviously trying to balance a family at home as well. It's harder and harder to do that. So you try as you might, you try to be around them when you're traveling, try to be around them post-game, but you never really have that same type of connection. Now, the good thing for me is that I'm not one that this is about me feeling good about myself, and I don't need any type of reward or my own satisfaction comes from knowing that I've done something that can benefit everybody, whether anybody recognizes it or even the young man or woman has no idea that I played a role. Yeah. I enjoy that. So the fact that I don't need that, though I miss the interaction, I still have a lot of satisfaction knowing that some way I'm potentially having an impact on our student athletes, whether they ever know it, will ever know, or even care. But I know that I've done something to help provide them with an experience at a spectacular institution.
Right. I'll ask a couple more questions here and we'll wrap. The first question is relative to managing up, right? Onboarding a new athletics director. You've been here for 2 or 3 athletics director. Now you're working real close with Jeremiah. You were real close with Chris DeConte. Tell me about the onboarding process for Jeremiah as he transitions to the leadership role and has to understand what it means to run a whole athletics department, to be over the window to the university in terms of what the public sees outside of academia. Tell me about that, how you helped him.
Yeah, it was really, and it still continues to be, something I've really enjoyed with Jeremiah. A lot different when I came in administration with Chris and he brought me over. I'm so thankful for that opportunity, and I've learned so much from him at that time. But he was an established athletic director, and I came in. Well, as we went through this transition, Jeremiah was not an established athletic director, and all of his career in athletics has been focused solely on the external and the fundraising and development side. So he leans on me a lot to, hey, how do we do this? What needs to happen here? Whether it be just in athletics or even across the institution, given my time here and the knowledge of the place. So it's been really good that I've been able to help him sometimes take a deep breath, slow down. This is what we can do. How do we solve different problems? Or even just helping educate him on, okay, here's a different aspect of the department that you really haven't thought about. And I'm excited about, the next couple of years with him because, he got the job as we're right in the heat of a stadium expansion and a fundraising model. So much of his time and energy and efforts have been focused on that, that as we get towards the completion of that, I'm going to get him back a little bit more, if you will, and help him, continue to improve on what we're doing internally with the department and just more ingrained with all of our staff as they get used to a new leadership of the department as well.
Well, and that also, and you'll never say it, but it benefits you too, right? In terms of him working on a lot of the things that he's working on in stadium expansion, sure. And as you learn to lead the department and grow as a leader of people as a department, big time budgets, big time conference, big time college athletics type thing. I wrap with this final question. What is your learning process, right? You are in this position now, and how do you learn to do the things necessary to be effective in the role you're in, right? Thinking in terms of what your role you're in now, or even thinking in the future, like what is your learning process? Obviously talk to people and as much as you can, but tell me about how you've...
Well, I think everything else with learning starts with listening. Right. I mean, we have to be able to listen. I joke with some of our staff sometimes, it's just keep the antenna up. I mean, though you may not be spoken directly to, or you may not be directly in a conversation, you're not eavesdropping, but you're paying attention to everything around you because you can pick up clues as to what may be happening and how you can have a positive impact. Maybe you can change course of something if you're along it. And then just relying on your experience, my personal experiences of trying to be resourceful is a word we talked about earlier. And resources, a lot of people always tie to money. And I don't think of being resourceful as a financial thing. I think it's finding ways and options to get where you're trying to get. Kind of a coach speak there, but you want to, no's not a word anybody likes to hear, and no's not a word that we like to give. So how do we get creative and be resourceful and find options and be creative, and how can we help get people where they want to the right way? And I think it's just a learning process. And every time you go through something like that, or you're presented with a different challenge, and whether it go back to ops days and we have a travel issue, or to now maybe you have a financial aid issue, or whatever it may be, how can we solve that? Maybe we have an employment issue. How can we keep somebody? How does somebody need to move on? How do you find right ways to do that are in the best interest of the institution, our athletic department, and of course the people that we're serving. So it's a lot of listening, paying attention, drawing on experiences, and sometimes asking the question, hey, the word I use a lot with Jeremiah and I'm a lot of his devil's advocate. He may say something, I'll challenge him, and he'll challenge me, and I love that relationship with him. And I know I learn a lot from that because he's going to have a different perspective on things. And then sometimes just, okay, let's change our way of thinking. What we've always done is not always the right answer. Right. And so how can we look at that, knowing that our end goal is still the same? One, we have to support our two biggest assets, and that being our student athletes and our coaches. And number two is how do we provide that experience for all those people to best represent the institution?
Right. And you've done a good job at that, and obviously it's taken you where you need to be. This has been an excellent conversation, Mike. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. That was Mike Sinquefield. He's a Deputy Athletics Director here at TCU. And of course, this is Ty Brown with Athletic Director U. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.